Title 17 U.S. Code 512F provides penalties for the deliberate misrepresentation of copyright infringement. The owners and authors of this video, the common denominator, and the Paramistic Broadcast Channel are a nonprofit 501c3 exempt organization and believes in good faith that it constitutes educational fair use, as per Title 17 U.S.C. 107. Persons, agencies, attorneys, and or social media algorithms filing a false or frivolous Digital Millennium Copyright Act complaint may be subject to civil liability. Warning: the following content may contain elements that are not suitable for some audiences. Accordingly, viewer discretion is advised.
Today is hump day, folks. It is hump day. And as always, I pledge my allegiance to the Constitution of the United States of America and to the republic for which the flag stands, one nation under Almighty God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have to tell you, I'm having a wonderful, unexpected situation, but as I promise, I always try to find that one quote that I think is suitable. And right now it's coming down to our presidents, or the two presidents that are around, in fact. But leadership is not position or title. It is action and example. That came from a broadcast executive. Apparently, I've got an awful lot of broadcast executives that I've been finding quotes from. And, we're in some very bad times, folks. We are in some very bad times. Donald Trump right now is undergoing, I'm sure you all know, a witch hunt. And believe it or not, we too also undergo witch hunts. And in doing so, we've got to stand our ground, more or less. And I know myself personally, my life was changed back on May the 22nd of 2023. And it wasn't changed for the better. It was actually changed for the worse. That's when I found out that apparently, I guess, a deputy can be cut loose by their sheriff. And in doing so, they can just have full reign to accuse people of anything they want without the supervisor, in this case, the Sheriff Adams of Daviess County. I call him a stooge. Really stepping in and saying, okay, you've got this investigation going. Let me talk to the victims. Let me find out exactly what was going on before we proceed any further and get to where we are literally going to maybe consider pressing charges against someone. So the sheriff cut her loose. She finagled her way with making up her own lies and story, and in doing so, convinced the prosecuting attorney to, of course, issue a warrant on my behalf. But in order for that to have come to me, I had to actually, believe it or not, she actually had to get the judge to sign off. And anything that is seemingly, what do they call it? Seemingly of sexual origin, that's a felony. And this is not nice. This is really a bad thing. And so a sexual harassment charge was brought on me after 10 months of fighting this with my attorney, the whole 9 yards. The deposition really gave light on the whole situation. It was the opinion of a deputy to charge me with a sexual harassment. They took my DNA. They took my CCW. I wasn't allowed to drink. I wasn't allowed to smoke pot, which I use pot for. I know everyone says medicine, but, I actually do have a viable reason why I smoke. And it is a health reason. It doesn't change anything about my pain. It just makes me a little easier to deal with life. And I've been on, I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to get back my name. It's not revenge. It's called vindication. And I was blessed with meeting an individual about 4 or 5 weeks ago. And God put all this together. So many of my friends have said, Vincent, you're in a beautiful place. And believe me, if it wasn't through the strength and power of God and my faith in that belief of, I have to tell you, I don't know where I'd be right now. I'd probably be paddling and getting nowhere. But I've been working with a gentleman. His name is Tanawah Downing, and he is going to be coming and joining me shortly. This is also going to double up, by the way, folks. I like to double this up and let you know that we're trying to get a fundraiser going for Tanawah. So without, what can I say? Without any further ado, Tanawah, are you ready to join me, sir? I hope. I was hoping. There we go.
How you doing, brother?
I am quite well. I had to shut the door. What's that? Yes. I can hear you, but I can't hear you in there. On there. Yeah. Anyway, folks, can you hear David, both of us? We've got a little technical difficulties. We've had rain, believe it or not, for 3 days. It's like huge rainstorms, and they've just been here constantly.
I can hear you. I cannot hear Tanawah, so he might have to drop out, come back in, and make sure that his microphone is authorized to be used on there.
Okay. Can't hear you. You may have to drop out and re-enter. So we're having technical difficulties. It's to be expected. It really, truly is. You've got to be patient in today, and that's something else. The instant gratification. I don't know when this all came about. I do believe it was because of the telephone. You were no longer trapped to a wall, or in your house if you had the cordless, and you had to be within feet of. But ever since we got the telephone, the cell phones, we want instant gratification. So I believe we've got Tanawah back here. I myself say, hey, take it easy. Yes. Say something.
Hey.
All right.
I'm here, guys.
It's trial and error sometimes, brother. Trial and error.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're testing my patience for sure.
Yes. Well, you know what? I'm going to step out, reduce myself, I guess the best way to put it, because I really want you to talk to everyone and let them know what is going on. And there you go. Thank you. Go ahead.
You know, there's something that I've been wanting to say, and I want to express. I'm getting a little bit of feedback in my ear. Maybe there's a second mic in the room, maybe, or something. I'm not sure. Maybe turn volume down if I'm on something. Yeah. Okay. So when I first started this 9 years ago, I was preparing, knowing that I was going to be ultimately taking the Supreme Court. I knew that I was preparing an argument to be able to address a number of issues. I didn't know the extent of what I was doing. Certainly, if I would have known, I can't say that I would have done this again. It would have been way too big. But when I started, I thought, I'm going to show this judge, this prosecutor, they're doing things wrong, and they're going to see it, and everything's going to be right. They're going to admit, and because that's what I would do if I'm showing that I'm doing something wrong. I'm going to correct that behavior, and I'm going to. I had no idea.
We have there we go. We have phone calls coming in. Again, it's not the best reception out here where I'm at, and I know he's in an area I think he was having bad weather out where he was at. I want to say I think he's in Kentucky or Tennessee or something. Maybe the Smoky Mountains are having some difficulty. But he was saying how he wasn't prepared. None of us are prepared for adventures, let's say. Sometimes things come around, they blindside us, and we have to be stronger to get around those obstacles. And that is precisely what I believe he is currently doing. Maybe we'll have even a better vocal on this, but I'm going to bring you up on stage, and here we go. You said you were talking about being prepared.
When I first started 9 years ago, it started with a prayer. I mean, that was the very first thing that happened. It was on November 10th, 2016. I sat there and said, you know what's going on is wrong across the country. And I asked God to let me do this, right? And the prayer was extremely simple. It wasn't complicated. And I said, Father, deliver us from the evil that we ourselves to become. And what happened was that was on November 10th, 2016. On Thanksgiving morning, I woke up that morning and I wrote something. I wrote something. To this day, I can honestly say that it wasn't me that wrote it, because there's things in it that I would have had no idea were going to happen, because this what I'm about to talk about is there were two instances within it that I talked about a group of petitioners, right? At the time, I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew I had to do something, but yet it's talking about a group of petitioners. And my point is that today, right now, at the end, we have a group of petitioners, right? And so I've come to learn, because anytime I was questioning whether or not I was doing the right thing, or whether or not whether I had a bad day, or I was wondering why people were doing these things to me, I would always go back to this thing that I wrote, and I would recite it to myself. I'd recite it to everybody around me. That's what got me through all the hard parts, all the difficult days, everything else. And so I would like to start right now by actually reciting that letter to you guys, because the words that's in it, they mean a great deal to me, and I know that they'll mean a great deal to you. But now that I know what the words are, because now that we're at this point where we're getting ready to go to the Supreme Court, I'm fully aware that these are the opening remarks to the United States Supreme Court. These are the words that will be spoken in that room the day that I walk into it on June 6th. So I'd like to go ahead and give you guys the opening remarks to the Supreme Court. "243 years ago, a great and powerful nation was established through the faith and fury of God, in defiance to acts of oppression and abuse which were contrary to the natural fruits of freedom. As a result, great men arose to wake to a new vision, a free one, where all citizens are bestowed certain inalienable rights from and by our Creator. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are not simply terms that are extended wealthy. They're not table scraps that are fought for as they fall from the table of accessible note. They're freedoms that are bestowed to all, regardless of age, race, wealth, intelligence, or history. It's the ability to visualize a dream of one's future and the power to then manifest such a dream. Success and failure is upon the individual and not the government. Limitations come simply from a person's inability to dream or the sins of oppression. Today, we call these men great heroes, forefathers, and patriots, and they become symbols of our pride and our aspirations. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and so many more who are worthy of our mention and obliged to our eternal gratitude. But the story could so easily have been different, for before these great men were called patriots, they were called rebels, criminals, and tyrants. Their vision was dismissed, and their cause was laughed at. But they knew something that no one else did. They had a power that none of their enemies understood. It was the power of God and truth. Indeed, our nation was founded by rebels, and today, by delivery of this notice and the presentation of irrefutable, reasonable, sound, just, and clear violations of the rights bestowed upon us by the United States Constitution and as designed by our Creator, new rebels have now emerged. But not to destroy a nation, instead to work together to bring about positive change and correct the flaws in our foundation so that no more will justice not prevail. No more will the innocent be punished, that we will return to the roots of our nation's freedoms and the source of our once great hope, that God Almighty is the only true and righteous judge, and that in his glory and in his power, guilt and innocence can be ascertained. The petitioners included in this written allegation are not only witnesses to these atrocities, but each and every single one of them have also been victim to them many times. But we are all very proud to claim that the blood of those rebels who fought to our freedoms 243 years ago is the very same blood that runs through all of our veins. So you can call us rebels. You can call us criminals. History, however, will call us patriots. United we stand, but divided we fall. A great division has been placed across our nation, weakening our greatness and threatening our very existence. Am I not your brother? Has God not commanded your forgiveness and his vengeance? Is not your crimes perpetrated against me not equal to the allegations of the very same crimes perpetrated by me? How can one claim a right and ability to judge me for an action to which the judge himself holds more guilt, yet refuses to cleanse himself first? My brother, first remove the plank from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to move a speck from my eye. If you say you want to judge, seek first judgment of your own house, and then you be qualified to come and help cleanse mine. With great power comes great responsibility. What is easy is not necessarily what is right, and what is right can sometimes seem wrong. But with God, all things are possible, and with the law, the correct path is now illuminated. This path will not be easy. There will be much work demanded, and many apologies will have to be offered, and that will take much courage. But where courage and its product transpires, strength will inversely come. That strength is the image of forgiveness and not vengeance. The strength to heal a divided nation because of the glorious gift of a new life that God has given us. To no longer be bound by the sins of our past, accept the freedom of our futures, to truly be able to turn away from old sinful lives, because sin no longer has its hold on us, is precisely the recipe that God has prepared in order for the courage and the strength needed to produce this amazing future for our country to now come about. Change does not come without reason. Reason does not come without wisdom, and wisdom does not come without mistakes. For a tree to grow, a seed must first die. The roots of tyranny and oppression can master evils. From those evils can come the condemnation of the innocent, the defamation of a good name, the confiscation of property, or the alienation and destruction of a family. We have been told the truth and the way to destroy evil from the ruler and creator of all. You overcome evil with good, and you never repay evil for its evil. So I implore you, with the greatest convictions that I can muster, grab hold of the weeds that are destroying our nation, take them by the roots of their evil, and let's extract them from our great nation. We who are free can only boast in freedoms that are real and not illusion. We're each only as free as the freedoms that are extended to all, and not simply some. Any time a freedom is demanded or stolen from one through justification or ignorance, that freedom and right is lost to all, and not simply the target of scorn and punishment. Any freedom which can be removed from one can be removed from all. It's no longer freedom, but simply an illusion of freedom. Evil shows no favoritism. When evil is given birth, it becomes a thief. And once a thief, we all must bear the consequences of its evil thievery. Vengeance solves nothing. Casting blame fails to grasp the great message. And our mutual hope should be reconciliation, not just with each other, but with the faith in the source of our nation's foundation. We are a nation of laws, and those laws are essential to maintain an order and peace. But more importantly, we are a nation founded on faith. We must return to the faith of our design system, a system that sometimes a guilty person may appear to be set free, but more importantly, a system that, if utilized properly, innocent people will not be punished. Today, as of this moment, I can tell you, and I bear my own witness testimony, and as God is my witness as well, innocent people are being punished because the system is broken and is never acceptable, not in any country, state, city, or household, for an innocent person to be wrongfully or illegally imprisoned. Ignorance is not a defense. Simply because you do not understand the laws of gravity or believe in the laws of God does not mean that you're not bound by them. Lack of knowledge resulting in a violation does not eliminate you from the ramifications of such violations. The illegal and highly destructive acts perpetrated by the justice system, although I do not believe are intentional or malicious, does not negate their existence. Crimes done in secret and in dark are still crimes, and justice still deserves to be rendered. However, as the petitioner, I bear great responsibility in that God desires mercy and not sacrifice. Therefore, peaceful resolution and mercy for your ignorance I offer to you. In closing, as our brother James told us in his letter, it is sin to know what you ought to do and then choose to not do it. Everyone makes mistakes. No one is perfect. But the difference between average and great, a sheep and a lion, is the ability to produce wisdom from one's mistakes. Everyone falls down, but only fools fail to stand back up. A repentant sinner is always forgiven when that repentance is sincere and a new course is chartered. But woe to anyone who in their pride and in their arrogance remains blind and cannot feel sorrow and compassion for the destruction that they themselves have caused. May God, in his righteous judgment, have mercy on such souls. This has been prepared in the writing of my own hand, but the devastation exists through the lives and painful experiences of each and every single member of the attached petitioner list. Not one person, not one marriage, not one family, not one household, not one city, not one state can claim that the violation of rights presented and proven within the argument presented has not affected them somewhere or in some way of their lives. When freedom is robbed from those who are free, truly I tell you that everyone pays for it, whether they realize it or not. Respectfully and peacefully, a servant of justice, Tanawah Downing.
You know, I have to tell you, I was watching you speak. These are words from your heart. You said that you had written them down or whatever, and I don't think you have a teleprompter in front of you, but these are words from your heart. And you're so right that for someone to sit in judgment and yet at the same time violate, I didn't want that look at all, at the same time violate our freedoms, our liberties. They don't realize it goes further than just the courtroom. It actually goes into our civil life. I'm going to see if I can turn around and balance this out. There we go. You know, it's actually it goes off now, and this has been a fear, and it was brought to my attention yesterday. Someone said to me, you know, Vincent, you could end up getting literally hurt bad because of this officer's lie, because that's what it is. It's a fake allegation, false accusation. It's a lie. She should be part of the, I think it's James Cohen. I'm sorry, James Cohen Club. You know, the Liars Club.
Right.
But this actually goes a little bit further because not only did she do that, but the prosecuting attorney, and also I would feel as though the judge is somewhat complicit or conspired to this. Would that not be a wrong statement?
No, it's absolutely true. And the reason why, I get in this argument a lot with people because we want to look at the judges and the prosecutors and these law enforcement, and we want to say, oh, well, they're good people. They're good people, right? But the problem that I have with that is that you either have pure truth or you have a false. If there's a little bit of a lie within truth, it still is a lie, right? So you can't have a person and say that they're good that's breaking the law, because that still makes them a criminal. So when people say to me, when they say, oh, this judge is good, or oh, that cop, that police officer is good, I'm not saying that they're bad, right? And I don't want to assume that they're bad, but you're either lawful or you're not. You can't have it in the middle. You can't have gray area. You can't say that he's good in this decision but bad in that decision. You can't say that he tries to do the best that he can and doesn't hold the others accountable. That's not how it works. And we have to acknowledge the truth here, because the definition of a criminal is one who transgresses the law. And there's lots of different types of law. A person that commits extortion is still criminal. And therefore, how is a person committing extortion sitting over judgment of a person that committed robbery? Because they're the same offense, right? The same thing. And so this is the foundation of my argument, is that if our country has been led by criminals, we're going to go the wrong way. And I don't want to believe for a second that these are bad people that don't have honor and so on. But honorable men honor the law. And if you are not honoring the law, then you cannot call yourself honorable. So every single one of them have a duty and responsibility to ensure that their actions are consistent with the authority that the people have delegated to them. Because if you exceed the power authority statutorily conferred upon you or delegated by the people, then you are acting outside of authority of the people, and that means you have no authority. And so the laws are written to confine the government, right? And when government decides to exceed those parameters that the people have established and set, then one, we have rights that have been violated. We have people who have been harmed. And so the law establishes those limitations. And so the right, and thus you should have it just to be able to seek the law establishes those limitations. You have the limitation on the right, and thus I'm gonna just keep on talking then. So the law establishes the parameters. But as I was explaining to someone earlier today, let's take the Civil Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, 1968. Those were right after the desegregation of the South. So the overruling of Plessy versus Ferguson by the Brown versus Board of Education case. You see, Congress came together and said, well, how did this happen? How do we go so far awry from our principles and laws and all the rest of it? How do we go so far awry? And so then they came in and they started talking about this issue, and they came up with a solution in the form of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, 1968. What they were doing was they were trying to put into place parameters so that our society could move forward in a relationship that we can all accept, that is more fair and eliminates the issues of segregation and so on. But what you got to understand is that when you deal with an act, there's two different parts to it. There's the civil action and there's the enforcement action. So in the Civil Rights Act, in particular, Title 42. So in Title 42, you've got, for instance, Title 42, 1983. I think that you all are aware of that, right? If you have a civil rights violation, you will go and file a 1983 civil rights suit, and that's how you're seeking to have your liberties restored or to be made whole again, right? So you're all familiar with that. But that's half of it. right? That's the civil half. But the flip half is the enforcement statutes. And those enforcement statutes are Title 18, subsection 242, 241, 243, 244, 246. These are the enforcement statutes that provide for criminal element. Because I keep telling you guys that before you have a right that's been violated, you must first show that someone else had a duty to act and they breached their duty. Until you show that someone has breached an obligation, in other words, broke the law, then you do not have standing to be able to pursue your civil action. And the whole system knows this, right? They know this because they know that if one of their agents were held criminally liable for a deprivation of rights in the court of law or a conspiracy to deprive of rights, if they were held liable, you would have grounds to seek injunctive relief through the 1983 civil statute. They go together. It's the same act. It's the same package. One side is enforcement. The other side is the remedy. Okay. So you have no remedy until you first show that someone else had a duty to act. And so what I'm saying is that I'm working on this side. I'm working on the enforcement side, because when we deal with the enforcement,
if you break the law, you're a criminal.
if you
words on this, we can't ease up on
you,
it.
you're
Well, because I was in phone call.
you're a criminal, and we can't mince well, because I was and they were trying to help me and improve my argument. And I appreciate it. I absolutely appreciate it. But they wanted me to say that the judges erred or they made mistakes and they didn't like me saying criminals, right? But if you walk like a duck, if you talk like a duck, I'm going to call you a duck because you're nothing more. So a criminal is simply one who transgresses the law. So if we could show that they are transgressing the law, you have to call them out for what they are, because it's not against the law to err. It's not against the law to make a mistake, but it is against the law to deprive people of their rights. So when you tell me that I need to ease up on the words I'm using because it offends them, I'm going to say, good, I'm glad, because maybe by being offended, maybe they will stop doing their criminal acts and actually obey
We all have to take this.
the law.
Because the
We all have to
Rights Act was to make government
take this stance, because the purpose obey the wills of the people and enforce the laws of the United States Constitution. That was the purpose of the Civil Rights Statute. So if they refuse to enforce the enforcement statutes, in other words, choose to not hold government accountable for their crimes, you guys have no standing to be able to be made whole when they violate your rights. It's as simple as that. So that's why I say you guys are not getting any traction in the things that you need to be made whole, like restoration of your family, get your children back, or overturn an unconstitutional judgment, or whatever that might be, whatever rights have been stolen from you. You're not getting action on it because we're missing the first half, you guys. You're missing the first half. Before you can go after the outcome, you first got to show that there was initial action, and that comes by way of the statutes, of the enforcement statutes. That's what I'm trying to do. Because when I finish the work that I'm doing right now, once I show that all of these government agents had an obligation, and bear in mind,
that they all have to go to prison. But what
I'm not saying that they all have to go to prison, but what I am saying,
or you're choosing to be a criminal,
is that they have to make a choice.
you're going to act criminally, then maybe you
Or you're choosing to be a criminal, then maybe you do need to go to prison. Maybe you do need to spend some time there, get to know God, because that would be the wrong decision to make. But I don't think that that's going to be what's necessary. But that's not up to me. All that I can do is present the evidence, show what is happening, because the laws are not there to protect the government officials. The laws were created to restrain the government officials. So we've got to recognize what they are. We've got to call them out for what they are. They might be honorable. They might believe that they're honorable. They may not think that they're breaking the law. They may not think that they're criminals. But if their actions are contrary, then you're a criminal. If you break the law, you're a criminal.
and I don't think a criminal should ever be judging
And I don't think the criminals should ever be judging other criminals. It is a maxim of law that you cannot break the law in order to enforce the law. So when they choose to break the law in the outcome of an adjudication or whatever, it's not lawful, because by their unlawful act, everything that comes from that must be unlawful. Therefore, there cannot be guilt where there's unlawfulness, right? The man of lawfulness. So I'm going after this side. I'm showing them that you guys are breaking the law through an ongoing criminal conspiracy by and between pretty much every single government official in their refusal to hold themselves accountable for the crimes that they're
by the laws that we enacted to
committing against the people of the United States, by the
their own institution.
Laws that we enacted to protect us was shown
And the lawful segregation
to have done a terrible and the lawful segregation done by government officials. That was a mechanism to pit the people against each other, spread them apart, keep them separate. It was a terrible thing to do, and yet we put into place countermeasures to prevent it, to where we can criminalize those people that fail to guarantee and provide rights. That was the point. That was the solution that Congress came up with to deal with this issue and prevent it from ever happening again. So when we go through these discussions and these people say, oh, they didn't mean to do that. That was just a mistake that the judge made, right? That was just an error that the judge made. No, it wasn't. It was a crime. It was a crime. It was a crime that was created by the laws created by the people. That bound them to adherence to those obligations. You're going to commit a crime. And guess what? You have already implicitly, by a punishment in the form of perjury, should you fail to fulfill the promise. They've already said that if we don't do it, you can hold us accountable for the criminal acts that we commit. So if you don't do what you promised to do, then guess what? We can call you a criminal. I can call you a criminal all day long, because you've already said I will be a criminal if I don't do what I promised. That's how this works. So as I start to hold them accountable for the enforcement violations, for the crimes that they've committed that has resulted in their criminality, and as I do that, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to freeing up the obstruction that you guys have over here, that you need to be able to make yourself whole, to be able to recover your children, to be able to recover your liberty. All these things that have been taken from you by the criminal acts over here, you are going to get them back. You're going to have the ability to file the civil action that you need, the 1983, to be able to restore what you have lost. But this is an absolute essential first step, right? But you guys don't know this, because you guys keep on looking at the money. You keep on saying that oh, I want to get back what they've taken from me. Well, that's just not how it works. Before you can do that, you first have to do what I'm doing. You first have to go after them. You first have to get them to say, okay, I didn't err, I committed a crime, right? You first have to get society to say, oh, they aren't with honor because that wasn't an error, that was a crime, right? Because a crime is the result of breaking a law. So when we create the law that protects the people from them abusing the law, and then they say, oh, it's just an error. No, you walk like a duck, you talk like a duck, you're a duck. I almost cussed, you guys. I'm sorry about that, but I almost did. I almost said that F word because this makes me mad. This infuriates me that we will continue to argue about this, because what I'm doing is I'm drawing the line in the sand. There is no gray area in the law. You are either obeying it or not. And if you aren't obeying it, you're a criminal, because that's what a criminal is. So I'm not going to say that you erred. I'm not going to say that you made a mistake. I'm not going to say that you're an honorable person most of the time, right? Because you're not honorable if you don't honor the law. You're a criminal. So I'm going to call them what they are, and I'm going to say you either remain over there or get your ass over here and help me fight the rest of them. Because if you remain over there, you're a criminal. And it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you try to produce. every single thing that every single attorney and judge in the history of our country has done is without force or effect. None of it is valid because they have never followed the laws. They've never recognized the will of the people. They've never obeyed because they all say they're honorable and they're just committing errors. It's not an error. It's a crime. You guys are criminals. And if you are done being criminal, then get over here and let's fix our country. Otherwise, I'm going to leave you over there. And guess what? Every single thing that you think you've done, every single conviction that you believe that you obtained, every single person that you enslaved are all going to go home because none of it's real. Because you're all a bunch of liars. You're all a bunch of criminals who walk around and say, I don't break the law. I'm honorable because I just commit errors. No, that's not how shit works. You're criminals. We're going to call you out for what you are. So as long as they continue to act outside of the law and say that what they're doing is an error, when we know that it's a crime, then every single thing that they're producing, every single conviction, every single slave, every single child being removed, it's all unlawful. It's all without force or effect because they never followed the laws. And where there's a breach of law, there cannot be lawful outcome. If you break the Constitution at any point in time, the outcome must be unconstitutional. So I'm not going to tell them that they erred. I'm not going to say that they made a mistake. I'm going to say that you guys did not follow the will of the people, and so your incrimination, your enslavement of our people, your destruction of the family unit, your robbing of the children from families, it's all void because you're all a bunch of liars. You're all a bunch of criminals. They're leading our country. And we're no longer going to follow criminals. America, we the people are good. And we're going to go in a good direction because we're not going to follow a bunch of criminals off to prison. They have no right to judge any one of us. None. Because they're more criminals than anyone sitting in those institutions today. Anyone.
You know, I'm listening to you, and the word hypocrisy comes to mind. I look at what, again, I'm going to use Trump right now because it's national news. He's a billionaire. It's a witch hunt. And that judge should have recused himself. And I've been following this. His daughter's been making money off of Trump's, her disdain and hatred for Trump. And really, the prosecuting attorney, Alan Bragg, has not presented one shred of evidence that Trump has, in fact, broken the law of any kind. So in this whole ordeal, it's taken away his freedom and his liberty to move on with his life. In this case, in campaigning for the presidency, and in reflection of myself. And I know I probably maybe have let too much of my situation out, but you can't screw up with truth. You just can't. But I know myself. I mean, again, I had to give my DNA. I didn't want them to have it. I had to give up my CCW card for that 10 months. I didn't want them to have it. I wanted to be able to protect myself and do so covering it up. I wanted to have a drink every now and then, or again, maybe indulge in a little pot, but I wasn't allowed to. They took away those liberties. And folks, I was talking to Tanawah not long ago, and I mentioned to him the word common law. This is really what you're doing is you're trying to reinforce the constitutional law or the common law. Is that not really the way we're seeing it, sir?
See, there's a couple of different types of common law, right? There's Roman common law, there's English common law. We're getting these terms completely confused. All right. So Thomas Paine said that in a free nation that the law is the king, right? The law is the king. And so, you know, when we look at that from that perspective, that is the king. That's what rules over us. That gives us our morality, gives us a direction. Through him, we get our life. Through him, we get our sovereignty, and all these things. So in a free society, the king is the law. But you got to recognize some of the words in the preamble to the Constitution. It says, "Do ordain, we establish this Constitution." Now, what gets ordained? A king gets ordained, a priest gets ordained. So we, the people, ordained the law, right? Because you ordain the law, you ordain a king. So when they ordained it, right, where we're getting confused is that common law is made by commoners, right? So this great big body of law exists called common law, right? And at the very bottom of common law, the absolute opposite of the Constitution, because Constitution requires the majority. There's very, very specific procedures, the special many procedures that are necessary in order to change or alter our rigid Constitution are all found within Article 5. And it must be done by an authentic act of the people. And until it's done by an authentic act of people in accordance with those procedures, there is no alteration. It cannot be changed by unilateral changes either by state, party, or legislature. So you can't change the Constitution in any other way than as prescribed by Article 5. Now, the reason why I say that is because the way that we change the Constitution requires the majority of the people. And it's done through suffrage, right? So we vote, and as a result of the vote, the majority says, yes, we will change our relationship with the Constitution. Over the years, there's been over 90,000 proposed amendments to the Constitution. There's only been 27 that has ever been actually ratified and adopted. So it's a very, very difficult process. This isn't like, okay, we're just going to propose an amendment tomorrow and we'll vote on it in November and it'll be done. It's a difficult process to amend our rigid Constitution, very difficult. So it doesn't get done very often. It's not like typical state constitutions or statutes that you can, revise every single month or cycle and, change a word here or there. It's not the case with the Constitution. So we ordained that Constitution. We ordained it. We made it our king, our ruler, what rules over us, right? What's guiding all of us, what's giving our life and our sustenance because our faith in it. Common law is the body of law that's made by commoners, okay? And down at the bottom of common law, which is the exact opposite of the Constitution, is a judge-made ruling, all right? A judge-made ruling. Because the judge-made ruling is one single man imposing his will upon the rest of the nation. It's a decision made by one man based upon his own social, political, or public policy. So the exact opposite of constitutionalism would be a judge-made ruling, which is what they call case law. So the lowest form of law is case law. The highest form of law is constitution. The superior supreme law is constitution, and the lowest, made by commoners, is case law. And so when we create the commoner, when we create the common man, that being the judge, who is a servant to the king, us, right? Then what he produces is common law. It's common law. It's case law. And so I think that Chief Justice Marshall, he made some great rulings, and he had some really phenomenal statements, right? But there was one case, I believe it was Martin versus Hunter's Lessee, and I'm going to butcher this, you guys. I'm so sorry about that. But he said something to the extent that our Constitution is a rigid Constitution, meaning it can neither be changed nor altered by unilateral decision. And then he said that it cannot be changed by typical legislation or by acts of judicial acts. That would be like saying that the servant is over the king or the peasant is over the king, which is an absurdity too clear to be contested, I think is what he said. So when he says that the peasant is above the king, right, that the servant is above the king, and that the servant's decisions, the commoner's decisions, are above the king, that's without even contemplation. That's an absurdity that isn't even to be discussed. So when the peasant, being the commoner, the judge, says that he's above the king that we ordained, well, you can never have commoner above the ordained. You can never have a servant or peasant above the king. And yet that's exactly what we have today, is the judges say, oh, we're going to go to this law, the lowest form of law. We're going to refer to it to determine whether or not we're breaking the law, which means that they're not going to their king. They're not asking it. They're not obeying it. And as a result, they're acting without lawful authority, because the king is what gives his agents their authority. And so understanding all of this, you just have to know that what they produce is in conflict with what is directing them to produce. So we grant them their authority. We created them in our sovereignty, and as a result, they can only operate within the parameters that we establish. And so when you deal with legal realism is the belief that judges make the law based upon their own social, political, or public policy. That is what common law is. So you guys, you see, common law isn't actually good, right? It's not actually good, because what happens is that judges create this massive body of law where Hurtado versus California says you don't have to have an indictment by grand jury, but in Ray Looney says you do, right? Where the Constitution says you have to have a grand jury, but Barron versus Baltimore says you do not. So if you want to decide to side with one party or another, and I think that we've all heard that every single legal proceeding has already got a predetermined outcome. Before you walk into that courtroom, the state already knows which side they're going to be on, which side's going to win. They've already sat at lunch and played cards, and the one that's going to lose was the loser in the card game. I don't know how they do it, bunch of assholes. But what I'm saying is that it's a predetermined outcome. Before you even walk in that courtroom, they already know who's going to win and who's going to lose. And that can be done by this common law. Because when you have judges who determine the outcome and you rely upon them, how many millions and millions of cases are there out there? When I can go to a state court, right, a state trial court, and I can say, oh, look, this Washington State's trial court said this, right? Therefore, you don't get it from the Constitution because this trial court said it. I mean, which law is supreme, right? Is that not an erroneous view of the law? I mean, what about when the Constitution says that you cannot be held to answer for a capital or infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury, and then Hurtado versus California says, well, California, you don't have to have an indictment by a grand jury. It's okay that you do something different, right? How is it that the court and the judges are able to change what was intended to be a protection of the people under the Constitution of the United States, other than through this legal realism, through the judge-made rulings, what we call administrative law or common law? So common law, what it was intended to do, it was intended to be used for civil laws, because you can't have structure and procedures within civil law, because civil law, anything could happen, because it's a dispute, right? And so, if you've been injured, right, in some sort of way, then the procedure, there's no real procedures to be able to take you through that. Because when you deal with civil law, it could be anything. When you deal with criminal law, you murdered someone, they're dead. There's nothing but procedure, right? There's not really anything that you can question, because the crime is either you did or you didn't. And so the whole point of the Constitution on the enforcement side or the criminal side is that we want to make sure that every single person is entitled to the same protections, privileges, and immunities as anyone else, so that we have a fair and equal process, which requires the establishment and the adherence of procedures and processes, which is what the Constitution did. You can't be held for a capital or infamous crime without an indictment by a grand jury, right? You have to be able to be innocent until proven guilty, right? You have to have the right to be able to call witnesses, to cross-examine witnesses, right? And that it's the prosecutor's burden of proof to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you're guilty. That's all the procedures. And procedures are used on the criminal side. Common law is used over on the civil side, not on the criminal side. You do not use judge-made rulings to determine how you're going to proceed on the criminal side, because if you do, then you have the black man over here that gets convicted and sent to prison for the rest of his life for whistling at a woman, when this guy over here that killed a whole family because he was drunk driving, well, he gets to go home tomorrow. Is that fair? No. The reason why is because we are permitting the judges to decide through their own administrative law how the law will be administered through administrative law. And that cannot be done. That is not fair. That is not constitutional. And it is not criminal. Civil law and common law You use that for lawsuits. You build that in the civil law, but you take it the hell out of the criminal law, because criminal law is based upon procedures. And those procedures were established 243 years ago. They've never been changed. They've only been robbed from the people. The procedures work because those procedures have been established over thousands of years by Blackstone, by the rule of man. These are known natural laws that if you do not adhere to them, you get into a situation where innocence suffers. That's well known, very well known. So these arrogant assholes that say that they don't have to follow those procedures because it's better that 1,000 guilty are punished or 1,000 innocent are punished than one guilty go free. I say to you, you don't even understand what the law is, because you don't bring civil law, case law, into the procedures of the criminal matter, because criminal matters are procedurally based. You say, what happened to you, Vincent? What happened to you, Vincent? What you need to understand is that when that prosecuting attorney representing the state as an agent of that body of men that make up the state, when they chose to accuse you of breaking the law by way of the agent accusing you of it, well, there was no accuser but the state. So when the state becomes a party in the cause, then that whole body of men that make up the body of the state, they will all work together to advance the interests of their master. That's why Article 3, Section 2 says, in all cases in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. But then what they do is that prosecutor says, you know what? There is an accuser. I know that, right? There is an accuser, and I have to bring an accuser in if I had a grand jury. Because I can't stand there and be like, oh, I'm accusing them, because the state can't be the accuser, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're going to have a grand jury and have a proceeding to where we have to bring in a person to present an accusation so that we can have a wronging to determine whether or not there's probable cause to assume that a crime is committed, in order to do that, you would have to have an injured party. And that prosecutor knows that they cannot be the injured party. So they know that they can't even proceed with the very first step of determining probable cause if they themselves are the party, if the state's the party. And as a result, Vincent, what happened to you was that they said, you know what? Can't go that way. Can't go that way. So we have to go a different way. So I'll tell you what we'll do. I'm going to accuse you of a crime by way of an information, because I'm going to accuse you of it through my affidavit. I'm going to present that affidavit as fact because I think you did it, right? But I don't have enough evidence to prove that you did it. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to charge you with this, because then I could put you into jail, right? Then I could take away your liberty, right? Then I could not feed you enough. Then I could take away your books. I could keep it so that you can't work. I can make you stress every single day about the fact that you can't pay for your house payment, right? You can't see your kids. You can't kiss your wife, right? You can't cover your car. All of these things are in place as a deprivation tactic to make you say, oh my God, I'm guilty. Please let me go. Because that's its whole intent. Because they don't have enough evidence to prove that you're guilty, so they want you to say that you're guilty, and they're going to use those deprivation tactics as a mechanism to say, oh, I'm guilty. Even though you're not, even though you know deep down in your heart you didn't do a goddamn thing, but you're going to do it because you're starving. You're going to do it because you're losing your house. You're going to do it because your wife needs you at home to help take care of the kids. You're going to do it because the tactics of terrorists have been exactly the same for thousands of years. And you guys, I was a national security expert. I know terrorism, you guys. I was one of the top experts in the country. You guys, you know, when you guys criticize me and act like, whatever, you guys don't know me. You have no idea my history. You have no idea who I am or where I came from. And I'm telling you right now, I know terrorism very, very well. It's the use or threat of use of fear in order to bring about a desired result from one organization to another organization. That is a term that we Americans have grown quite accustomed to called terrorism. It's a shame that our global war on terror has entered into our own border and so dramatically impacted our own citizens. And we need to address this, because terrorists, the delivery might be different, but the tactic is the same. They're called deprivation tactics. And the very first thing that any terrorist does is they take away the food. Because the moment that you don't have food in front of you, the moment you don't know where your next meal is going to come from, you are going to spend that entire day worried about where you're going to get food and not worried about overcoming your situation. They know that, right? They know that when they put you into a block wall where you can't see the sun, they know that you're going to panic. They know that these things cause you to act erratic. They know that these things make you afraid, and that humans can't function in fear, and that it makes them appear as though they're crazy. They know these things because these are tactics that terrorists have used for thousands of years. So when the prosecutor says, you know what, I don't have an accuser, but I know that this guy's guilty. I know that he did that, right? Because I don't like this guy. He's an asshole. So what? Is it a crime to be an asshole? No, it's not. I don't give a shit if you don't like me, but you don't have the authority to be my accuser because you work for the state. And the state can't be my accuser, because if the state is my accuser, then the United States Supreme Court has jurisdiction and not you. So what do? They charge you by information. They charge you by an affidavit. And what happens there is that that information is presented in the form of an affidavit, which at common law is considered truth because it's presented as the truth. They say the following facts are accurate. Well, those can't be facts because they're coming from someone that isn't even a witness, because they're only collecting information from the accuser that doesn't even exist and says that nothing happened. But nonetheless, it's presented as the following facts. And then they go to a judge and say, Judge, you know what? I'd like to get this guy arrested because I don't like him. He's an asshole. All right. And when they say that, that judge says, I got a good relationship with you. We're on the same side. I believe you because I like you, but this other guy, he must be an asshole, right? Where's the neutral and biased third party? Who's reviewing the state's accusations to determine whether or not there is bias, right? That's the point of the grand jury, you guys. That's the point. Before you can be arrested, someone has to determine whether or not the state is actually able to prosecute you, whether or not there's even any facts in the case. They need to be able to see the accuser and let the accuser present the accusation so the accused can counter that accusation. Because if you were to be innocent until proven guilty, and you're being arrested before you've even been asked your side of the story, how the hell is that innocent until proven guilty? If you're being arrested and treated as though you're a criminal, the moment that someone calls up and says that you did something without verifying or validating that, because this asshole prosecutor is now that accuser's attorney, where's the fair, neutral, unbiased process in that? How is it that you are innocent until proven guilty and yet you're sitting there in handcuffs in an orange jumpsuit, right? When you were the victim, when they came to your house and tried to steal your shit, right? How are you sitting in jail? Because they made the call first, because they created the first debt. And who wants the debt? Obviously the government, because they love money, right? So if it's a debt that's owed to society, whoever creates the debt is the side that the government chooses. Therefore, the one that owes the debt is always the side that's going to lose every time, because the state likes its money. It wants to go with the side that is the slave owner, the one that holds the debt against the other person, and it wants to enslave the debtee or the debtor. Wow. And therein lies the whole system. That is the unraveling of the whole goddamn thing. But when you do that, state, by your failure to recognize and follow the established procedures and processes codified in the Constitution, the obligations that you promised to fulfill, and the jurisdictional obligation that grants you your authority to even be a damn court, when you do that, what you produced is nothing, absolutely nothing, because you have no authority to act outside of your delegated authority. The prosecutors, judges, state, I would suggest that you listen to me and start addressing these problems, because it's just going to get very much more problematic for you if you don't. Because this is the truth, and the people of the United States are going to understand this truth. And I told you 4 years ago to tell the truth on your own, or else I'm going to help you tell the truth. But if I have to make you tell the truth, if I have to tell it for you, you are going to beg me to stop, because you're not going to be able to live within the society that you almost destroyed in your arrogance and greed. Tell the truth to the people of the crimes that you've committed and the ignorance that you've had, and let's move forward as a nation. If not, you are criminals, and criminals do not get to produce a valid outcome. Criminals are criminals, and criminals do not get to stand over judgment of other criminals. When it comes to the issue of sin, everybody loses. Everybody is a sinner. Everybody. You want to call yourself a judge? You want to say that you make errors and mistakes? I say bullshit. You're a criminal because you broke the law. You're not going to sit and judge this guy over here, because extortion is not a justifiable action in order to get someone to admit to a robbery. You're doing it wrong. You're hurting our people, and you're destroying our nation, and I'm tired of it.
Wow. That it's so funny you say that, because I believe one of the very first, immediately after I had heard the news from the counselor who represented me in this case, and he said they have dropped the charges, Vince, they've dismissed the case. I said, is there any way I could get an apology from them?
An apology is admission of guilt. You're never going to get an apology. You know, down in Texas, a number of years ago, Texas, this was back in, I believe, the 60s. There was a movie that was made about this. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I can hunt it down. I don't remember off the top of my head. There was this individual that was arrested for a murder at a convenience store. Lady got stabbed a number of times within the convenience store, and they arrested this guy, Hispanic guy, and they put him to trial. And they found him guilty, and he was put in death row. And ultimately, the whole time, he said, "I'm innocent. I didn't do it. And there's a whole bunch of evidence that said otherwise. But nonetheless, they ultimately put him to death. Well, after they put him to death, it came out. I believe the Innocence Project was actually the one that produced the information. And I'm sorry if I'm getting some of the details wrong. If some of you guys know the story, and I don't mean to do that. I'm just trying to, get to an outcome. But what happened was that they knew that they said that it was a Hispanic male in a white T-shirt or something like that, right? That was all the description that they had, right? And so then they found this guy that's a Hispanic male in a white T-shirt, and they said, "Oh, that's the guy. That's the guy right there, right?" But there was no indication of it. But ultimately, the outcome was that they knew exactly who did it, because it was an informant, a police informant, and they didn't want to disclose their police informant, because that would, of course, compromise their investigations and a number of other things. And the state of Texas permitted an innocent man to be murdered because they were unwilling to give up their witness. And that's disgusting. That is absolutely disgusting. And this is factual. But my point is that, you mentioned apology. The governor came out, and I don't know which governor it was, but governor came out, and what he said to the family after all this was disclosed, after it was all came and everybody knew about what actually happened, the governor said, well, the jury made the right decision at the time with the information they had. Is that an apology? The jury made the right decision at the time with the information that they had. That's no apology. That's disgusting. The jury made the decision based upon your agents' refusal to do their job, and they allowed an innocent man to be murdered, and you can't even apologize to the family? Are you insane? They made the right decision with the information that they had at the time. That governor should never, ever, ever be in that position. Because if you can't apologize to the family of people that your agents murdered, I'll be damned if you're ever going to lead my country. There's no honor in that. I'm not going to walk around and say, "Oh, that was just an error." No, that's disgusting, man. Is that who you want leading your country? Is that who you want leading your state? Ain't who I want leading.
No,
I don't want criminals leading me, These are disgusting stories that our government has done. There's thousands of these stories out there. I hear about them every single day, and yet they say it was just an error, it was just a mistake. Nah. Enough of the errors and mistakes. That's not an error. When I tell you that this is what the law says, and then you come out after me on the road trying to arrest me, are you insane? 14 more states. 14 more states, guys. You better get ready. I'm coming. June 6th, it's coming down.
You know, Tanawah, I've got to tell you, I have been so, and I think I've expressed this to you. There's a reason why, for reaction, there's a reaction, and there's always deep down, there's a reason why. It's like kind of I was thinking earlier when you brought up the king, the ordained king, or the ordained priest. And I was looking at for a moment. I had to look again at the quote I found 2 minutes before the show, 3 minutes before the show, which was leadership is not a position or a title; it is action and example. And you have heard me maybe say this or at least touch on it. I actually want to run for governor of this state, and I really would love to somehow get this all together, wrap it up with a bow, get this over to Donald Trump and say, you know what, let's blow the GOP mind and let's get a common man with common sense, seeking common ground for the common good of the common denominator of people. Because I have heard stories as such, like you were just talking. I watched one case in particular, and I, in my heart of hearts, and I still say this, the state of Texas, it was another execution by Texas. It was a black man. I believe his last name was Davis. And I thought to myself, with all this evidence that's suddenly coming to light with DNA, blah, 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 can't they give this guy a break? They didn't. They executed him anyway. And of course, the outcome was he was, in fact, an innocent man. And they say, well, our system isn't the best in the world, but it's close to it. It's close enough, is what they say. And what I say is, this isn't horseshoes. This isn't a battle scene where you've got a hand grenade and you get close enough, but you don't hit that foxhole of enemy.
Vincent, it's like I said, if you murder someone, it's murder. If you kill someone without lawful authority, it's murder. It's not an accident. It's not an error. It's not a mistake. It's fucking murder. You murdered him, right? Accept the responsibility of what you did, because that's a crime. You
Yes.
do not murder the people of the United States. You don't do that and then walk around and say, I just made an error. Sorry. Prosecutor just withheld exculpatory evidence and let that guy go get murdered. Yeah, that's just an error. That's a mistake. Sorry, guys. That's acceptable deviance, right? Right? Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, just acceptable deviance. How many people are you going to lock up innocent because you guys want to secure a judgment through way of plea bargain, through your threats, intimidation, coercion, or duress? How many people are going to have to go to prison innocently before you guys say, oh, it's no longer an acceptable deviance, I'm sorry? Because if your number is correct, written in the criminal procedure manual, then that would mean that right now today there's 600,000 people that are innocent suffering because you guys don't follow the rules, because you guys make errors, mistakes.
Yep.
You guys are criminals.
We're getting very close here, Tanawah, to really, I'd like to get a comment in here. There's two of them, actually, I want you to look at. So a trial by affidavit, illegal or at least such as a gray area that could be overturned or go into a defendant's favor. I'm not exactly sure how that comes out as a question, but maybe you can, could it be overturned or go in a defendant's favor? There you go. In a trial of affidavit, whether it's illegal or at least in a gray area, could it be overturned or go in the defendant's favor? What do you think about that? Oh, okay. I think I'm getting to. I think we're. Have I lost you? I think I have, folks. Sadly enough, I believe I have lost Tanawah. What's very nice about this right now, because I mean, seriously, this man is in the trenches. He needs your help. This little Cash App thing that I've got going on the bottom. We're going to be showing these programs the past 2 days. We're going to be showing these often enough. We need to help him at least make it around to 14, 15 more states. I know one thing. He had a situation which I got to tell you, it was ordained by God that he was removed. That he removed himself from a vehicle, and about 30 minutes later he gets a phone call stating that, yeah, guess what, the vehicle was pulled over, and the police that pulled it over, if I'm not mistaken, like 20 of them that pulled it over, were actually looking for Mr. Tanawah. And you know what, I kind of like this. I kind of like the fact that he's in their radar, but at the same time that he had that gut feeling that there was something more powerful. I brought it up at the beginning of the program saying that it's faith, and it looks like he's coming back in. Great. But faith is something that's very strong. Here you go. All donations are subject to a receipt for tax purposes, as we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And we are, and you can, because we do believe that his Cash App is going to be gone. We're going to pop him back on because I do think he wants to answer a couple of these questions yet. Are you back? You are.
Yeah, I'm back. Thank you.
There you go.
As I'm taking a hit of my baby, guys. Thank you. You didn't see that, everybody. What are the questions? Sorry.
So is a trial by affidavit illegal, or at least in such a gray area? Could it be overturned or go in a defendant's favor?
Trial by affidavit is unconstitutional. It's illegal, not only in American constitutional law, but by international human rights standards. Trial by affidavit can never, ever, ever occur. Because what happens with the trial by affidavit is that you are charged with a crime based upon the mere fact of being, or that you're presumed to be guilty based upon a mere fact of being charged with a crime, right? So when they bring an affidavit in the form of and they present it as truth, and they say to the judge who they work with, right, of the same body of men that make up the state, and they say, Judge, I believe that this crime was committed, even though I wasn't a witness, even though we don't have an accuser, I'm going to say that you know what? Here's the facts, Judge. And the judge is going to say, looks good to me. Here's the order for arrest. Go arrest them, officers. And the officers will go out and pick them up and bring them in and say, well, now we're going to take away your freedom. We're going to take away your right to earn your livelihood. We're going to take away your property. We're going to hold you for ransom in the form of bail. We're going to do all these things to you without any justification or cause whatsoever, because we presume that you're guilty based upon the mere fact of being charged with a crime. That's what's known as an irrefutable presumption of guilt. Right, an irrefutable presumption of guilt. And what has to happen then is that you, as the accused, has to go out and collect evidence in order to prove that you're innocent, which is guilty until proven innocent. It's a complete shift in our whole legal theology. Right? We were intended to be innocent until proven guilty, but how can you be innocent if you're being arrested before you've been found guilty of anything? How can you be treated as though you're guilty, but yet, well, we're treating you as though you're innocent? You guys don't even understand the system. You're so full of shit that you guys don't even understand the procedures. And it's disgusting that you guys say it's an error and a mistake. It's not an error and a mistake. Learn the laws, guys. It's 4 pages long. It's not very difficult, okay? You guys are so proud of how well you know the law, yet you dishonor God by breaking it every single day, right? You want to walk around and say that you're honorable and you only make mistakes. Bullshit. You guys, you're criminals because you're breaking the law. It's 4 pages long. There's
You want us? No, wait, what the fuck?
Wow, we lost again, folks. It's just that. Well, here we go. Let's see. We have it back. There we go.
test.
Yes, sir. You're there.
Great, guys. Okay, good. Okay. I keep on getting kicked off. You guys stop calling my phone. Stop calling me. All right? You're interrupting this damn show, and I want to get through the show. Okay? And I don't know how to turn off my phone calls. Stop calling me. That's the 5th call now, guys. You're pissing me off. Okay? So what happens now is we have an irrefutable presumption of guilt, right? And you're presumed to be guilty until proven innocent, right? Here's the thing, guys. Ignorance of law is no justification for breaking it. You heard that, judges? Right? You familiar with that one? You guys use that on us pretty often, right? Right? Because we don't understand the 800 million pages of statute that you guys created. Well, guess what? Ignorance of law is no defense for breaking it, right? You have 4 pages. How are you going to justify that? I can say, oh, that's right, because it's an error. It's a mistake. Because you can't read 4 pages, but you expect us to read 800 million, right? Is that the argument that you're going to make? Is that what you're going to present to people in the United States? Is that really your argument, guys? Because I don't think you're going to go very far with that, man. Especially as smart as you guys think you are.
I'm here.
You guys, it's very, very simple. Very, very simple. You are innocent until proven guilty. But you can only be innocent if you are treated as though you're innocent. So when you decide that he is guilty and you decide to charge him with a crime because you don't like him and think he's an asshole, being an asshole is not a crime. Not liking him is not a crime. And you are not a victim. You're an agent of the state. And when the agent of the state is the accuser, the state doesn't have jurisdiction. What you're doing is unconstitutional. And when you act unconstitutionally, you're producing an unconstitutional outcome. So when you ask me, you guys, if it can be overturned, it's not even valid. It's not even real. It's a lie. It's absolutely nothing, because when a court acts that jurisdiction, what they produce is nothing. If you think that you have a judgment in place, that a judgment exists because they said that they convicted you, there's nothing there. They lied to you. They're full of shit because they didn't produce anything, because they didn't have the authority to do it. When this irrefutable presumption of guilt occurs, right? You have to go out and collect evidence in order to prove that you're innocent. Under United States constitutional law, as well as also international human rights standards, never, ever, ever does a defendant have to prove their innocence, because the system is already arrayed against them. You already have all the power on your side, and yet you're going to take away the one mechanism that exists that gives the accused protection because you want to win a case, because you don't like him and thinks he's an asshole. The purpose of the grand jury is to protect the accused from the accuser. It's not to protect the accuser from the accused. That's his procedure. That's there for his protection from you. So when you don't permit the accused to be present in that grand jury to confront the accusations against them, you guys don't even know what the hell that system is for. You guys are so incompetent that you don't even understand the very procedures and systems that are in place that prevent you and restrain you. That grand jury is for the protection of the accused. And yet you say, sorry, I'm not going to let him be there because I am the accuser, because I don't like him, because he's an asshole. Well, being a crime is not an asshole, but violating the Constitution is. Refusing to allow the accused to be present because you want to advance your case and win, that is a crime. But being an asshole is not.
So let me ask you, when this warrant was issued for my arrest, are you saying that it bypassed a grand jury?
No, it didn't.
It sounds like it did.
No. Even if they convened a grand jury, were you present in that grand jury?
No. Okay.
It wasn't a grand jury, because a grand jury is there for the protection of the accused. It's so that the accused does not have malicious and hasty charges brought against them by a government agent. It's not there for the government agent to intentionally skew the disposition of legal proceeding by hindering and obstructing free speech of the opposing party so that they can win a case, so they can put you into jail, so that they can deprive you of all the things that you need, so that they can say, well, either you plead guilty or else I'm going to send you to prison for 20 years because you're an asshole, right? That is not what the system is intended to do. You see, the 14th Amendment says that the laws will apply equally, that no state shall create any law that does not provide equal protection of the law. So when a government official decides to side with one party, the accuser, and then through the abuse of governmental authority, they're going to oppose and prevent the other side from presenting their counter accusation, They're treating two people in like circumstances differently. That's an equal protection violation.
Wow. Wow. Ooh. 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 Well, we got to take the good with the bad, folks. And I know Tanawah really has a lot that he wants to unload and uncover. I think we're going to call this a sign for the moment. Like I said, I know he was undergoing some bad weather. I know we were. I want to thank you for your time of visiting and staying with us. We're going to, and I really can't wait to see this guy again. He's going to be back on, believe it or not, on Monday. We're scheduling to have him on, and he's going to actually be on with Tom Martz. Tom Martz of WSGF down there, 104.1 FM on next Monday at 5 o'clock. And going back with at least to the 5 o'clock schedule. And I can tell you right now, I'm sure Tanawah is just, I'd say pulled his hair out, but he doesn't have any hair. And me, I've got hair. And thank goodness it's amazing I haven't pulled all mine out. I'd probably look like a twin brother to him. But seriously, folks, please get out here. Help us if you can. Anything will help. He's on a mission. And he's on a mission, believe it or not, to save the nation. This is just another one of those stones that we need to have in play. It looks like I have Don Corleone going to come on. I don't think so.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know if they do make a donation to email theparamystic@gmail.com. I will send out a 501c3 receipt for a donation to a nonprofit organization. Also, Vincent, you said that he's on with Tom Marks next Monday, but the ticker says June 24th.
Oh, it was supposed to be May 24th. A very good observation on that one. It looks like I mucked up on the, I did that, of course. And you know what? I make mistakes. We all make mistakes, but yes, he's absolutely correct. It's not in June. It will be actually in May. So I'm going to make that change right now just for giggles and grins to make sure we've got it going correctly. And here we go. There we go. We'll start that way. So, folks, please tune in. We're going to be. I'm trying my best to follow this man and keep up with his efforts. And believe me, it's honorable and it's full of integrity because he does care about what he's doing for each and every legal citizen of America, for each and every patriot of America. We're going to continue to push this out and push this forward. Thank you very much for joining us, and God bless you all. And please, if you take a moment of prayer, if you don't mind, but I sure would love to know that you're going to take that moments of effort with God and pray safe travels for him. With any kind of luck, I'm going to be in DC with him, and we'll see what happens. We're going to see what happens. We're shaking, rattling, and rolling some cages, and that's the way it goes down. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so very much. God bless each and every one of you.